There have been some talks about a possible trade between the Mariners and the St. Louis Cardinals, and honestly, this makes a lot of sense. And while nothing concrete has come out about these talks between the Mariners and the Cardinals, they have indeed talked, and that was confirmed by Jon Morosi over on Twitter. Morosi said, "The Mariners have young pitchers, the Cardinals have young hitters. Sources say they have had dialogue about trade concepts at various points in the last year. To be clear, the talks have not progressed, but the fit is obvious, so let's stay tuned." And it doesn't happen very often, but this very well could be an MLB piece for an MLB piece trade. In my opinion, it makes a lot of sense for the Cardinals to go out and try to get one of the pitchers from the Seattle Mariners, and the Mariners really could use someone in the infield, a hitter in the infield that could change the way this team looks. Is it possible that absolutely nothing comes of this? Of course. This is baseball, and these are trades in the MLB. More often than not, they don't happen. But if there's even some inkling the Mariners and the Cardinals could be making a trade, let's talk about one that I would really like to see happen. For the Cardinals in 2023, they're basically out of it. They are 13 games below 500 and basically 10 games back of the red-hot Cincinnati Reds. For the Mariners, they're back at 500 after beating the Orioles yesterday at 37-37 at the time of recording this, also about 10 games back of the Texas Rangers. The wild card in each league, well, the Mariners are a lot closer to getting a wild card spot than the Cardinals are. And the Cardinals have a plethora of good young hitters and outfielders, infielders, etc., while the Mariners have, I wouldn't say a plethora, but some good young pitching prospects that very well could fit the needs for the Cardinals, and both guys would have a ton of control. This is a multi-piece trade, but the two biggest parts of this trade will be Bryan Woo going to the St. Louis Cardinals and Brendan Donovan coming back to the Mariners. Now, don't click off the video, we need to talk about this a little bit more. At the end of the video, I will discuss the full packages that I would send over to the St. Louis Cardinals, but for right now, let's just talk about Woo and Donovan. Woo just had his best start of the year holding the Yankees hitless for 5 innings. He got his first MLB win, which of course the win doesn't mean much, but nonetheless, it meant a lot to him. Bryan Woo got his first win, and he has honestly been such a revelation for the Mariners. A team that was already down Robbie Ray, lost Marco Gonzalez, and Bryan Woo was able to step up, and after a rough outing against the Texas Rangers, and then another rough outing against the Los Angeles Angels of Disneyland, Bryan Woo had 2 really good outings both against the Yankees and the White Sox. Woo has the second most strikeouts to begin a career behind Felix Hernandez. There are so many accolades that Bryan Woo has had, and he was the most called on pitcher in the Mariners system in the offseason, according to Jerry Dipoto. So it's easy to see, now that he's had some MLB success, why another team, especially the Cardinals, would want him. And for Woo, it's his 6 years left of team control that would be really attractive to the Cardinals, because they're going to be losing 3 of their top 5 guys on their depth chart to free agency or retirement at the end of this season, including, of course, Adam Wainwright, Jack Flaherty, and Jordan Montgomery. With the current depth chart, that would leave just Matthew Liberatore and Miles Mikolas as the only 2 pitchers left in that rotation for the St. Louis Cardinals. Being able to add Bryan Woo to that rotation would be a big upgrade for them. And as for why the Mariners might want to trade Bryan Woo, it's kind of simple. It's just the fact that A, they have some pitchers coming back, including, of course, Robbie Ray at some point next year, Marco Gonzalez at some point hopefully this year, and barring any other injuries, they're going to have a full and stacked out rotation that maybe Bryan Woo doesn't necessarily fit into. Marco's still under contract for a few more years. Robbie Ray is still under contract for a few more years. The entire starting rotation is locked up through, I think, at least 2025. And while you can never have too much pitching, it's definitely easier to fill in a spot in a rotation via an off-season acquisition like a free agent than it would be to maybe fill in a free agent hitter, especially when you have to think about the dimensions of T-Mobile Park and just how hitters don't love coming there. There's also a good chance that Bryan Woo is going to hit his innings limit relatively soon, maybe even by the end of July, and at that point the Mariners probably aren't going to have him in the starting rotation anymore, meaning they would need to go out and make a trade or have Marco come back in the first place to even fill that rotation spot. Now let's talk about Brendan Donovan, and to talk about Donovan we need to go back to the Cardinals depth chart. As of right now, the Cardinals depth chart has Brendan Donovan as the #1 option at second base, although Nolan Gorman has been getting a lot of time there. He's also the backup at first base, at third base, and a backup at shortstop as well, and of course, even in the outfield. Brendan Donovan can play quite literally anywhere. And for Donovan, his percentile rankings are probably what the Mariners are looking for. His K percentage is in the 89th percentile, and his chase rate's in the 82nd percentile, his whiff rate in the 97th percentile. He is someone who controls his zone really well. He walks quite a bit as well. He's a left-handed hitter with a little bit of pop here and there, and he gets on base. In his 2 seasons in the big leagues, about 195 games, he has a 383 on-base percentage with a 768 OPS. He's walked 87 times and only struck out 109. Donovan is someone that can spray the ball all around the field, and he can, of course, like I said, fill in at any position in the field, making it really easy to get guys some DH time. Brendan Donovan won't even be arbitration eligible until 2026, at the age of 29. Right now, Donovan is 26 years old. He's making the base salary of $728,000. Bryan Woo is also pre-arbitration right now. He's making $720,000. He won't see free agency until like 2029 or something like that. The reason for the Mariners' struggles has been pretty obvious, and that has been the offense. Albeit the last couple of days, they've looked really, really good against the Orioles and against the Yankees. But having Brendan Donovan, who could probably be your everyday second baseman if you wanted him to, or you could slide him around the infield and even the outfield, would be a huge addition to this team. He's like Dylan Moore, but with way better on-base skills, and honestly just a better all-around player. And again, for the Cardinals, I think they're going to be asking for MLB-ready talent, and in my opinion, the only one that I would be willing to give up would be Bryan Woo. I'm not giving up Bryce Miller or George Kirby or Logan Gilbert. Bryan Woo is the only one that I'd be willing to do it, only because he's probably not going to impact this team towards the end of the season. The Cardinals are going to be gearing up for next year. They already know they're going to need starting pitching, and adding Bryan Woo would be a good start to that. But in my opinion, it's going to take more than just Bryan Woo, a guy who has 4 career Major League starts, to get someone like Brendan Donovan, who has been around for 195 career games and has put up numbers in all of those games. But for the Mariners, they have a really unique opportunity at the MLB trade deadline this year, in that they can actually trade a draft pick. Because they were awarded a draft pick for Julio Rodriguez, winning Rookie of the Year last year after starting the season with the team, which was all written out in the new CBA, that draft pick can be traded, and that's the 29th overall pick in the draft. The Mariners have the 22nd, 29th, and 30th overall pick in the 2023 MLB draft, and only one of them can be traded, and that's that 29th pick. Now, I'm not saying the Mariners would want to trade this pick, but if you're trading it for a guy with a ton of control like Brendan Donovan, it might be worth the risk. Trading the pick does hurt their pool of money that they would have in the draft, but if you're getting Brendan Donovan again in a year and also the next few years where you expect to compete for a World Series, it might be time to stop worrying so much about draft picks and just go after a guy that you know can help you perform on your team. Ideally, the Cardinals will be willing to take both Bryan Woo and that draft pick, and honestly, that might even be an overpay on the Mariners' part if they were to throw in a very low-level lottery ticket guy. I don't even have someone in mind. If they were to throw in a very low lottery ticket or a quad A guy like, I don't know, maybe a Cade Marlowe or something like that. I don't know why the Cardinals will want outfielders, but you guys get the point. The big headliner here is Bryan Woo and that draft pick for Brendan Donovan. We'll just keep it there. Bryan Woo and the draft pick. I think you could be able to get it done, and adding Brendan Donovan to this team would be a massive upgrade for your bench, for second base, etc., etc. It might mean saying goodbye to my favorite man, Colton Wong, but you need that offensive upgrade, and you could bat him leadoff if you wanted to with his high OBP. You could bat him anywhere in the lineup. You can play him anywhere in the field. I think Brendan Donovan is the perfect fit for the Mariners. Whether or not the Cardinals are willing to get rid of him, especially with Paul Goldschmidt coming up at the end of his contract and some other guys getting a little bit older in that infield, who really knows? But that was the first name that came to my mind when Jon Morosi was talking about the possibility of between a trade with the Cardinals and the Mariners. Do you think the Mariners should make that trade, though, is the real question. With Bryan Woo and that draft pick going to St. Louis, would you do it if you were Jerry DiPoto? And Bryan Woo has gotten better with every start. Joe made a video about that yesterday. It's on the screen now. Go ahead and check that one out. I appreciate you guys watching this one, and go Mariners.